All right, so I want to update everyone on the new cases as usual, as well as get into some other important stuff. So let's get right into it. Alberta had 106 new cases yesterday, which is basically just below the average. I mean, the last 3 days prior to this, the average was 107. So we are starting to see a trend here. I would wait another couple days. If it starts to go down, I think that's a good sign. But if not, then you will be in some trouble. But we'll see. I think that given how long people have been in quarantine, isolation, whatever you want to call it now, this has to slow down very soon. And if it, like I say, if it doesn't, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Um, Canada is up to 14,426 cases with 258 dead. Alberta is up to 1,181 cases with 20 dead, with 64,108 people tested. Again, Calgary is the main area you got to worry about. 734 cases, 13 dead. 290 cases in Edmonton with 4 dead. And the one thing I wanted to point out that I heard on the radio this morning is that 10 of the 20 dead in Alberta are from one nursing home in Calgary. So honestly, like I say, I think this thing has been overhyped. Now, I want to make it clear, I'm not one of the it's just the flu kind of people. I think those people are way out there as well. I'm kind of in the middle that, on one hand you have the it's just the flu people, on the other hand you have this is the apocalypse kind of, let's, install martial law kind of people. I'm kind of in the middle. I don't think the economy should have been shut down. I think we should have. I mean, the big problem, number one, China completely messed up. The next biggest problem was we didn't close our borders. If we would have closed our borders, this would have hit us much less hard, much less hard. Um, but again, getting people to admit when they're wrong nowadays is almost impossible. So, but like I say, my whole perspective on this, looking back, I think in the history books, it'll be, can you believe that they, completely ruined their economy for a year, 2 years, maybe even more, just to prevent the deaths of, 1,000 people? To me the it's not worth it. At least that's my guess. Again, I'll admit I may be wrong. It's just my prediction, but again, it's just my guess that I think that people are going to be shocked at how hard this hurts the economy, and they're going to look back and be like, "Hey, it wasn't worth it." And they're also going to, I mean, again, like 10 of the 20 deaths in Alberta are in one nursing home, and how many of the other 10 deaths are very old people? My guess is that it's most of them. Like I say, I think that the numbers that I've seen, are, if you're young and your immune system is healthy, you have nothing to worry about. Your chances of dying are, you know, extremely, incredibly low. Like, probably 1 in 1,000 or even less. So like I say, I don't think this whole, quarantine is going to be worth it in the long run. But again, the government doesn't care about the long run; they care about the short run. I think that they're using this as a soft test to see, hey, what liberties can we take from people? That's the one big thing we have to look out for. Again, already with that app, they're already trying to track and listen in on everything you're doing. At the very least, tracking. But my guess is listen in too, because those kind of things have been shown that they listen in on your conversations as well. At the very least, to sell your data. At the very worst, to do some pretty bad things. But like I say, that's the one thing that we have to be concerned about. Like I say, I don't care how bad this gets. We can't give up any more of our civil liberties. We don't even have many to begin with in Canada. The states, they're a little bit better, but in Canada, like we kind of have free speech, but there's tons of exceptions, which means you don't have free speech. We don't really have many gun rights. We don't really have a true Fourth Amendment in Canada. I mean, technically, again, a lot of these things people point out to on paper, we have them, but they're not put in action. They don't generally, the courts will oftentimes rule against it. So again, if stuff's wrote on paper, but we're not following those rules, I don't care what's wrote on the paper. But anyway, let's talk about some other stuff here. This is from Stefan Molyneux. He goes on to say the real conspiracy theory is that bats developed a completely new virus, left their deep caves high in a mountain, flew 900 kilometers to a crowded and polluted city, then peed on a bunch of people who just happened to be right next to China's only level 4 bioweapons lab. Now, the official theory when it comes to this kind of stuff is this is a natural thing that came from bats. And again, I don't believe that. I don't think anybody with that has the ability to think critically would believe that, at least if you were guessing. I think, yeah, is there a chance? Absolutely. But if you had to bet money on it, I think you'd be stupid to bet money on it. I think the odds would be heavily in favor of it not being that. Like I say, just the fact that number one, bats aren't native to the area. They're not even close to being native to the area. They didn't sell bats in the market that they claim that it came from. And 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers away from the area where they claim that it originated is this bioweapons lab. So I think anybody, Occam's razor, the most likely solution is most likely to be what happened, basically. Um, and I think that it's pretty clear that either through lax, protocol, this was accidentally released, like I say, through lax protocol, or it was intentionally released for whatever reason. My guess is it was probably the accidentally part, but like I say, it wouldn't surprise me if they intentionally released it too. But again, it's clearly one of those theories. Again, I don't believe the official theory for 1 second. I don't think anybody else should. This is from Scott Adams. He goes on to say, calculate the virus risk of death for a 35-year-old American non-smoker, average weight, no known underlying health problems, practicing social distancing, wearing a face mask, commuting to work alone. Why can't that person go back to work? Again, this is something that I would really like to see, but they're probably not going to do it because I think it would go against the government's official, quarantine is the only way to do it. Um, like I say, I think that people who work at a job where there isn't massive amounts of people, where you're not face to face with hundreds of people a day, you're young, you're at least moderately healthy or healthy. I don't see why it makes any sense to do that. Now, again, the economy would still slow down, but it wouldn't completely shut off like it has now. Like what, probably, Alberta, I think Canada's had what, 5, 6 million people file for unemployment. Again, it's not going to last. We I don't think we can go more than April by doing this. I don't think it's going to work out. But like I say, most people, when it comes to their politics, when it comes to everything, the way they view the world, it's just the here and now. They don't care about the long run, which again is why I always scoff when they claim to care so much about climate change. Again, the one time you claim to care about the long run is climate change. But anyway, and speaking of climate change. This is from Stefan Molyneux. He goes on to say, is there are any of the scientific groups that sucked up hundreds of billions of dollars on climate change hysteria going to apologize for massively failing to keep humanity safe, or no? Again, all of the people that claim that that took tons of money from this, that diverted our attention and our resources away from things that could have been productive. Again, we're waiting on you. Like, again, it'd be nice to admit you're wrong, but again, people never ever going to admit they're wrong. No matter how blatantly obvious it is, they're not going to admit they're wrong. And that's so sad, that's so disgusting, but that's just the way it is nowadays, that people don't want to do that kind of thing. Again, we're continuing to waste massive amounts of money. I mean, they just increased the carbon tax in Canada. Again, politicians, they gave themselves a raise. Justin Trudeau, and even if the Conservatives did it, I'd be all over them too. I mean, the Conservatives, MPs get a raise too. I'm not sure if they voted for it as well, or if it's just a sheer, the party in power supports it. Again, I don't know how that works, but I don't care who did it. I'm against it. Um, and like I say, again, that's the problem too, is that the government has no incentive to do the right thing and or not necessarily the right thing, what's best in the long run, what's going to help society as a whole. Because if they get a pay raise, no matter what incentive do they have to do a good job? And again, that's one thing that about the left too, is that they don't understand incentives whatsoever, like whatsoever. Because the only way you can have a society function and continue to grow both economically, ethically, morally, societally, whatever, in any way. The only way you can have a society grow is if the government, at least one of the many aspects you need, is the government needs to be punished or to lose out when the economy and when society doesn't grow as a whole, and they need to be, you know, praised and get pay raises when it does grow. And the problem now is that that doesn't happen. So what incentive they have for it to go? Again, it's just makes absolutely no sense. Like, if you're working a commission job, let's just not a commission job. a sales job, and you get paid the same no matter how much you sell. Well, what incentive do you have to sell? It makes absolutely no sense. Again, that's the leftist way of doing things, is that you get paid the same whether you sell 100 or you sell none. Again, that's again, people need to wake up nowadays. The amount of, cognitive dissonance and just stupidity in the average person. And again, it's largely not their fault too. People think that I'm hating on people. Largely it isn't their fault. But on the other hand, it's like you really should have the self-awareness to recognize just how little you do know. And like I said, there's nothing to do now. Like, read books, watch videos. Like, come on. Like, I've already read 3 books in this whole time. And again, like, what is the average person doing? Just, watching Netflix all day. Again, doesn't make a lot of sense. But anyway, the last thing I wanted to talk about here is from Robert Barnes. He said, from a DM, I'm a nurse in a hospital and I am furious what is happening in our country. What is being reported is not what's happening. Our large hospital is so underwhelmed with patients. We are being put on call instead of working our scheduled shifts. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that a family member of mine was recently, had to go to the hospital to get a surgery done. And number one, like, they're from a small town, so they went to the small town hospital. Obviously, small town hospitals, most they can't really do surgery, so they had to take them to a bigger hospital in a town of about, I don't know, 20, 25,000 people. And they said, in both hospitals, there was not a whole lot going on. In that bigger hospital, there was only one person that had the virus, in an area that probably serves, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people. Of that, one person had it. Um, Again, so, and both, they said both those hospitals very quiet, like incredibly quiet. Most of the nurses not doing anything. And like I say, I understand in places like New York, yeah, they're going through the roof. But again, New York was one of the states that was telling people, like a couple weeks ago, right before this, saying, yeah, go out in public, who cares, go celebrate Chinese New Year, all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of why. But like I say, I don't think that this is. I think, like I say, I think that we're taking this a little too, not taking it too seriously isn't the best way of putting it, but you know what I mean. And again, I think we're taking it a little too far. I don't think it's going to be worth shutting down the whole economy when we look back at it. Um, Again, just my opinion, and that if you disagree, fine. But again, that's my opinion. I think we're taking it a little too seriously. And like I see, I've heard multiple cases from this. I have heard some cases of people that are working at hospitals and say, yeah, it's completely overwhelmed. But those seem to be few and far between. And they've said that, yeah, I'm in a New York hospital. I'm in an area that's pretty overwhelmed. Like, I'd like to see of any of the big hospitals in Canada, are any of them overwhelmed? Are any of the big ones in the States? Obviously, I think this guy's from the States. Um, Again, I don't think that it's going to be quite as bad as what we think it's going to be. I think that we're going to regret completely shutting off the economy. But like I say, I don't think that, half-assing it to an extent is the right way of doing it. I think that if we're going to do it, you have to go. Like I say, I think half-assing it's a bad way of doing it. I think that you either have to send most people back to work, the young, healthy kind of people, or you have to do what we're doing and actually kind of enforce it, because the problem right now is a lot of people are still out, with, going to parties and, still congregating in large groups, all that kind of stuff, not taking it seriously. But again, what can you do? Again, you see this person too here. As a Chicago nurse, I can vouch for this. Nurses are being sent home due to low PT census. So again, this is, Chicago, that's a big city. So if anywhere would have cases, you'd think it'd be there, but I guess not. But anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you like the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I do have my PayPal link in the description. I do have an email address for e-transfer. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.